I always thought I knew my wife. Every quirk, every subtle change in her expressions, the way she hummed absent-mindedly when she was deep in thought. I noticed it all. Or at least, I thought I did. But no man truly knows his wife until he catches her betraying him. It started with a small, seemingly insignificant change. A leaky faucet in the kitchen. "Call a plumber," I had told Samantha absent-mindedly one morning, sipping my coffee as she scrolled through her phone. She looked up, a flicker of something unreadable in her eyes. "Already on it," she said quickly. Too quickly. I didn't think much of it at the time. Just a regular home maintenance issue, the kind that popped up when you owned a house for long enough. Later that evening, when I came home from work, the kitchen sink was mysteriously fixed. No sign of tools, no bill left on the counter. Just perfectly flowing water, as if the problem had never existed. Did the plumber come? I asked as I took off my tie. Samantha, who was chopping vegetables at the counter, hesitated just a second before nodding. Yeah, he was in and out. Didn't take long. That was the first drop of doubt. A tiny ripple in my otherwise unshaken trust. The second came a week later. I was heading out early for a meeting when I spotted a white work van parked down the street. It wasn't one of our usual neighbors' vehicles. I wouldn't have thought anything of it, except that as I backed out of the driveway, I caught a glimpse of Samantha through the living room window. She wasn't just standing there. She was peering through the curtains, watching the van. A strange, creeping sensation settled in my stomach. I brushed it off, but it lingered. At work, I couldn't focus. My mind kept circling back to that van, to the way Samantha had reacted when I asked about the plumber. Why did she hesitate? Why did she seem nervous? And why was she watching that van like she was waiting for something? I pushed the thoughts aside. Maybe I was just being paranoid. Maybe. 2 days later, I came home early. Samantha wasn't expecting me, of that, I was sure. I stepped into the house quietly, setting my briefcase down in the entryway. The faint sound of water running drifted from upstairs. I called out, "Sam?" No answer. A strange feeling settled over me. I climbed the stairs slowly, my heartbeat picking up for reasons I couldn't quite explain. As I reached the bedroom, I heard it, a low, muffled voice. A man's voice. My breath hitched. I pressed my ear to the door. Laughter. Samantha's laughter. It was soft, playful, the kind of laugh she hadn't shared with me in a long time. My hands curled into fists as I stood there, frozen in place. I wanted to throw open the door, to catch her in whatever moment was happening beyond that wooden barrier. But something held me back. Instead, I turned and walked away. I needed proof. I needed the truth. That night, Samantha acted as if nothing had happened. She kissed me on the cheek, asked about my day, made small talk over dinner. But I saw the way she kept checking her phone. I saw the way her fingers fidgeted when I got too close. I didn't confront her. Not yet. Because if she was hiding something, I was going to make sure she never saw the storm coming. I barely slept that night. Samantha was right there beside me, curled up in bed, her breathing soft and steady. But I wasn't fooled. Not anymore. The laugh I'd heard through the bedroom door kept playing in my head. The way she'd hesitated when I asked about the plumber. The van she'd been watching through the window. Something was happening right under my nose. And I was going to find out exactly what it was. The next morning, I left for work as usual, kissing Samantha on the forehead before heading out the door. She smiled sleepily, stretching beneath the blankets. "Love you," she murmured. I didn't answer. My mind was already spinning with what I had to do next. By the time I reached the office, I had a plan. First, I checked our home security system. We had a doorbell camera and motion sensors, all connected to an app on my phone. I scrolled through the last few days of footage, looking for anything unusual. And there it was. 2 days ago, around 2 p.m., a white van pulled up in front of our house. A man climbed out, mid-40s, stocky, with short dark hair. He was wearing a work uniform, a tool belt slung over his hip. A plumber. So, he had been there. But what caught my attention wasn't the fact that he showed up. It was what happened next. Instead of heading straight to the front door, he walked around to the side of the house. A moment later, Samantha appeared, stepping out through the side gate. She glanced up and down the street, then led him inside through the back door. I watched the video 3 times, my hands gripping my phone so hard I thought I might break it. Why the back door? Why all the secrecy? The pit in my stomach grew heavier. That afternoon, I left work early. I told my boss I wasn't feeling well, but the truth was, I needed to dig deeper. When I got home, Samantha was at work. I had the house to myself. I started in the kitchen, checking the pipes under the sink. They looked fine, nothing out of the ordinary. If there had been a problem, it had been fixed. So why was my gut telling me something was still wrong? I searched the house, checking every room, every corner. Nothing. Then I spotted something. A small smudge on the hallway wall, just outside the bedroom door. It was faint, barely noticeable, but it looked like dirt. No grease. Like the kind you'd get from a plumber's tool belt. I turned and looked at our bedroom door. Slowly, my pulse hammering in my ears, I stepped inside. The room was perfectly neat. Bed made. No sign of anything unusual. But when I crouched down and looked beneath the bed, I saw it. A crumpled white rag. I pulled it out, my hands shaking. It smelled faintly of sweat and metal, like someone had wiped their hands on it. And unless Samantha had been crawling under the bed doing repair work, that meant only one thing. Someone had been in our bedroom. That night, I watched Samantha closely. She was relaxed, humming as she made dinner, completely unaware that I was putting the pieces together. I had the proof. The plumber had been inside our house, inside our bedroom. But I needed to be sure. So I did something I never thought I'd do. I set a trap. After dinner, when Samantha went upstairs, I loosened the lid on the kitchen sink's drain pipe. Just a little, enough to make it leak, but not enough to cause a flood. Then I waited. The next morning, as she stood by the sink pouring coffee, she suddenly frowned. "Ugh," she muttered. "The sink's leaking again." I stayed perfectly still. Then she picked up her phone. I turned away, pretending not to notice. But when I checked her reflection in the microwave door, I saw exactly what I needed to see. She wasn't texting me. She wasn't calling a regular repair service. She was messaging someone, and a few minutes later, she deleted the message. That was it. That was all the proof I needed. Samantha wasn't just calling a plumber. She was calling him, and I was going to make sure this time. He had no idea what was waiting for him. I wasn't sure what I expected when I loosened the pipe. Maybe Samantha would actually call a real plumber this time. Maybe I was overthinking it. Maybe, just maybe, I was wrong. But deep down, I knew I wasn't. The moment I saw her delete that message, it was like watching the last nail get hammered into a coffin. She thought she was being careful, thought she was covering her tracks. But the thing about lies is that they leak, just like the sink. And sooner or later, the whole thing comes crashing down. I had to play it cool. I grabbed my keys and kissed Samantha on the cheek like any other morning. "I'll be home late," I told her. "Long day at work." She smiled, innocent, relaxed. "Okay. Love you." I forced a smile back. "Love you too." Then I walked out the door. But I didn't go to work. Instead, I parked 2 blocks away, where I could see the house without being seen. Then, I waited. An hour passed. Then another. And then, just as I knew she would, Samantha made the call. Minutes later, a white van pulled up in front of our house. I gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. The same man from the security footage stepped out, toolbox in hand. He walked up the driveway with the easy confidence of someone who'd done this before. My stomach twisted. I already knew what I was about to see, but I needed to see it with my own eyes. I got out of the car and crossed the street, keeping low. The side gate was unlocked, just like last time. I slipped through quietly, heart pounding, and crept up to the back door. Through the window, I saw them. Samantha, standing in the kitchen, laughing at something he said. Her body language was relaxed, familiar, too familiar. Then, she reached out and touched his arm. That was all it took. Every doubt, every excuse I had tried to make for her, gone. My breath came slow and steady. I wasn't angry. Not in the way most men would be. No, I was cold. Calculated. I wasn't just going to confront them. I was going to break them. I pulled out my phone and hit record. The plumber. His name was Ethan, I realized, as Samantha said it in that soft, sweet voice she used to use for me, was leaning against the counter, grinning like he owned the place. Like he owned her. And then, just like that, they started heading upstairs. To our bedroom. I clenched my jaw so hard my teeth hurt. I waited until I heard the door click shut. Then, I walked inside. The house was eerily silent. I moved slowly, deliberately. There was no rush. No need to kick the door down or scream like some fool who had lost control. No, I had all the control now. I climbed the stairs, taking my time. When I reached the bedroom door, I paused. Then, without knocking, I turned the handle and stepped inside. Samantha screamed. Ethan scrambled away from her, eyes wide in shock. He was half-dressed, his belt undone, his shirt hanging open. For a split second, nobody moved. Then I smiled. Not an angry smile. Not a broken one. A slow, knowing, dangerous smile. Samantha's face went pale. David, she stammered, reaching for the sheets. Covering herself like that would somehow undo what I had just seen. Ethan, the idiot, tried to speak. Look, man, this isn't. I held up a hand. Don't, I said calmly. Just don't. I pulled out my phone and held it up, showing them the screen. The video I had recorded downstairs. Samantha's breath hitched. Oh my God, she whispered. Ethan took a step back. Hey, man, I think we should just... I turned to him. You should shut up. He did. I let the silence stretch. Let them feel it. Then, I looked at Samantha. You're going to get out of my house, I said, my voice quiet but firm. Right now. She blinked. What? You heard me. I stepped forward, towering over them both. Pack a bag. Get out. David, please, we can? No, I cut her off. We can't. She started crying, begging, saying it was a mistake, that she was sorry, that she still loved me. I didn't care. I turned to Ethan, my voice ice cold. And you? If I ever see you near her again, I will ruin you. He swallowed hard. Get out. Ethan practically ran out the door. Samantha hesitated, eyes pleading. David? I didn't answer. I just watched as she grabbed a bag, threw in whatever she could, and stumbled out of the room. The front door slammed. And then, for the first time in weeks, the house was silent. Completely, blessedly silent. I exhaled slowly, then sat on the edge of the bed. It was over. But something inside me knew. This was just the beginning. The house was empty now. No more laughter. No more lies. Just silence. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the doorway where Samantha had stood just minutes ago, begging for forgiveness. I felt nothing. No rage. No sadness. Just a strange, hollow stillness. She was gone. But I wasn't done. Not by a long shot. I didn't go to work that day. Instead, I poured myself a drink, whiskey, neat, sat in my chair, and started planning. Because Samantha? She thought this was over. She thought she'd pack a bag, crash at a friend's place, maybe call me a few times, cry, apologize, and I'd eventually take her back. She was wrong. She hadn't just betrayed me. She had insulted me. She had brought another man into our house, into our bed, and thought she could get away with it. That was a mistake. And Ethan? He had no idea what was coming. First things first, I secured the house. I changed the locks, reset the security system, and contacted our bank. Everything in our name, our joint accounts, credit cards, investments, I locked it all down. Samantha was about to find out how hard life could be when you lost the man who made it easy. Then, I went to her job. She worked at a high-end real estate firm, the kind that valued reputation above all else. I walked straight to her manager's office and closed the door behind me. Mr. Collins, I said, extending a hand. I'm David Monroe, Samantha's husband. His eyes flickered with surprise before he shook my hand. Oh, yes, David. What can I do for you? I slid my phone across the desk. I think you'll want to see this. He frowned, pressing play. It was the video I had taken. The one where Samantha and Ethan were laughing in the kitchen, touching, flirting, clear as day. When it ended, he sat back in his chair, running a hand over his face. David, I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything, I said smoothly. I just thought you should know that Samantha has been bringing her extracurricular activities into the homes of your high-profile clients. His eyes widened. What? I leaned forward. Do you know where she and Ethan met up before my house? I let the silence stretch. An open house. $1 million listing. His face darkened. That's a serious breach of company policy. Exactly. I picked up my phone and stood. Now, I have no intention of spreading this. That's not who I am. But if I found out, who's to say a client won't? Mr. Collins nodded slowly. I appreciate you bringing this to my attention. I shook his hand and walked out. Samantha wouldn't just lose her home today. She'd lose her job, too. Next, I dealt with Ethan. A quick online search gave me what I needed. His business website, complete with a phone number, a list of services, and, most importantly, a review section. I smiled. Then I started typing. I created a fake profile, posing as a homeowner. My review was simple but damning. Hired Ethan for a plumbing job, and instead, he spent more time with my wife than with my pipes. Unprofessional, disrespectful, and dishonest. If you value your home and your marriage, find someone else. I posted the review. Then I made another account. And another. By the time I was done, Ethan's once 5-star business rating had plummeted. He wanted to mess around in my house? Now he could watch his own house of cards collapse. That evening, my phone buzzed. It was Samantha. I let it ring. Then she called again. And again. By the 4th call, I picked up. Her voice was thick with tears. David, please, let's talk. I took a sip of my drink. What is there to talk about, Sam? I made a mistake, she choked. I wasn't thinking. No, I cut her off. You were thinking. You thought you could get away with it. You thought I wouldn't find out. You thought I'd forgive you. Please, she sobbed. I have nowhere to go. That's not my problem. Silence. Then, in a broken whisper, she said, You really don't love me anymore, do you? I laughed softly. Sam, I said, my voice cold. I don't even know you anymore. Then I hung up. I didn't feel guilty. I didn't feel regret. I felt free. But something told me this wasn't over. Samantha wasn't the type to walk away quietly. And neither was I. Samantha wasn't taking the hint. 3 days had passed since I kicked her out. 3 days of unanswered calls, ignored texts, and blocked numbers. But she wasn't giving up. And I knew she wouldn't. Because women like her, the ones who think they're too smart to get caught, too pretty to face consequences, they don't accept losing. They fight. They manipulate. They twist the truth. And when all else fails, they beg. It started small. A text from an unknown number. David, please. Just talk to me. I deleted it. Then another. I made a mistake, but you can't just erase me. I love you. Then, a call from a blocked number. I let it ring. An hour later, I stepped outside to take out the trash, and there she was. Standing in the driveway, eyes red-rimmed, hands clutching the sleeves of her coat. David, her voice cracked. Can we just talk? I crossed my arms, leaning against the doorframe. What do you want, Sam? Tears welled in her eyes. I need you. I laughed. You needed me? Since when? I tilted my head. Before or after you were screwing a plumber in my bed? She flinched. I messed up, she whispered. I know I did. But I love you. We can fix this. I stepped closer. Tell me something, Sam. She swallowed hard. What? I leaned in, dropping my voice to a whisper. Did you love me when you spread your legs for him? Her breath hitched. The tears stopped. The pleading stopped. And for the first time, I saw it. The real her. The anger beneath the guilt. The entitlement beneath the regret. She wasn't sorry for what she did. She was sorry she got caught. That night, I got another call. This time, from an unknown number. When I answered, I expected Samantha. I expected more begging, more tears. But instead, I heard a man's voice. Hey, asterisk hole, the voice slurred. We need to talk. I frowned. Who the hell is this? A pause. Then, it's Ethan. The plumber. I smirked. Why are you calling me, Ethan? Because you ruined my life, man, he snapped. You, his words slurred again. You destroyed my business. My clients are canceling. I lost everything because of you. I took a sip of my drink. Good. He breathed heavily into the receiver. You think you're tough, huh? Sitting in that house all smug? I don't think I'm tough, I said casually. I know I am. And unlike you, I don't need to sleep with another man's wife to prove it. He lost it. I heard something crash on his end. A bottle? A chair? You think this is over? His voice was dark now. You're wrong. You don't know who you're messing with. I laughed. Ethan, buddy, you were fixing toilets last week. Who exactly do you think you are? Silence. Then, a quiet, seething, watch your back. The call ended. I stared at my phone for a moment, then chuckled. A cheating wife and a useless coward of a lover? Pathetic. But something told me this wasn't the last I'd hear from either of them. And honestly, I was looking forward to whatever happened next. Because I wasn't done yet. Not even close. Ethan's drunken threat didn't scare me, but it did piss me off. I had already taken everything from him. His reputation, his business, his dignity. And yet, he still had the audacity to call me, to threaten me like I was the one who had done something wrong. I should have expected it. Weak men lash out when they have nothing left to lose. But I wasn't worried. I was prepared. That night, I set up an extra security camera outside the house, one with motion detection and night vision. Then, I loaded up my old shotgun and placed it by the front door. Just in case. By 2 a.m., I was drifting off on the couch when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. You think you're untouchable? Let's see how smug you are when I take something from you. My heart slowed. Not sped up, slowed. Because I knew, without a doubt, what he was implying. He wasn't coming for me. He was coming for her. Samantha. For a brief moment, I considered ignoring it. Let her deal with the consequences of her own stupidity. But then I thought of something else, something I hadn't let myself admit yet. I wanted Ethan to come after her. Because the moment he did, I'd have every reason to end this once and for all. So I got up, grabbed my keys, and drove. Not to her old place. Not to a hotel. But to the only person she had left, her sister. And sure enough, when I parked across the street, I saw her car. She was staying there. And if I had figured that out, Ethan could too. I cracked my knuckles. Good. Let's finish this. I waited. Hours passed. Then, movement. A car pulled up slowly, headlights off. It was him. I knew it before he even stepped out. Ethan moved toward the house, his steps unsteady, one hand gripping something at his side. A crowbar. I exhaled through my nose. He actually thought he could break in, drag her out, scare her? Pathetic. I stepped out of my car, my boots crunching against the gravel. Ethan froze. His head snapped toward me, eyes wide and bloodshot. What the? I cut him off with a single, measured step forward. Go ahead, I said, my voice calm. Take another step toward that door. He hesitated. You wanted a fight, Ethan? I took another step, my shadow stretching in the dim streetlight. You got one. Ethan licked his lips, glancing at my hands. You don't even have a weapon, man. I smiled. Then, faster than he could react, I grabbed the crowbar out of his hands and slammed it into his knee. He screamed, collapsing onto the pavement. I crouched beside him, pressing the metal against his throat. You threatened me. My voice was low. Dangerous. You threatened her. I leaned closer, until he could feel the weight of what was coming. But I don't play games, Ethan. I win them. He whimpered. Now, I murmured. You have two options. I let the silence stretch. 1. You disappear. You leave town. You never contact Samantha again. And you pray that I forget you ever existed. He swallowed hard. And 2. I smiled again. I bury you right here, and no one finds your body. Ethan pissed himself. I stood, tossing the crowbar onto the ground beside him. Make your choice. Then I turned and walked away. By the time I reached my car, he was already limping to his, scrambling to start the engine. I watched him peel off down the road, headlights flashing in the rear view. He wouldn't be back. I had made sure of that. The next morning, Samantha called me. I ignored it. Then she texted. I know what you did. I smirked. You're welcome. She didn't reply. Not for another 2 hours. Then, I need to see you. I almost laughed. She needed to see me? The same woman who threw our marriage away for a plumber? But I was curious. So I answered. Where? We met at a quiet park. She looked different. Less polished. More defeated. Good. She sat beside me on the bench, her hands twisting in her lap. I lost everything. I said nothing. My job. My home. My reputation. She swallowed hard. I don't understand. How could you do this? I turned to her, my expression unreadable. I didn't do this, Sam. I leaned in, letting her see the truth in my eyes. You did. Her lower lip trembled. For the first time, I thought she might actually get it. But then she proved me wrong. Can't we fix it? She whispered. And that was the last straw. I stood. No, Samantha. I looked down at her, letting every ounce of finality settle between us. We can't. And then I walked away. For good. I never heard from her again. Not a text. Not a call. Nothing. I found out later that she moved, out of state, far away. Ethan? He disappeared, too. Cowards always do. And me? I started living again. I traveled. I met new people. I smiled again. And for the first time in years, I felt free. 1 year later, I got a letter. No return address. Just a single piece of paper. David, I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't even expect you to care. But I needed to say it one last time. I'm sorry. For everything. I stared at it for a long time. Then I folded it in half and threw it in the fire because I had already moved on. And she was just another ghost in my past.